Imagine traveling back in time, thousands of years before the United States existed. No New York, no Washington, no White House, no American flag. Instead, endless forests stretched across the land. Massive rivers carved through untouched wilderness. Millions of people lived here, but they weren't Americans. So how did this land become the most powerful country on Earth? This is the complete history of America. Long before Europeans arrived, North America was already home to thriving civilizations. Historians believe the first humans reached the continent more than 15,000 years ago, crossing a land bridge that once connected Siberia and Alaska during the last ice age. Generation after generation, they spread across the continent, creating hundreds of unique cultures and languages. These communities weren't small groups wandering through the wilderness. Many built permanent cities. They farmed corn, beans, and squash. They developed trade networks stretching thousands of miles. Some civilizations built giant earth mounds. Others constructed impressive stone cities that still puzzle archaeologists today. North America was already alive with culture long before Europe knew it existed. Powerful nations such as the Iroquois Confederacy united multiple tribes under a single system of government. In the Southwest, the ancestral Pueblo people built remarkable homes into towering cliffs. Across the Great Plains, skilled hunters followed enormous buffalo herds that provided food, clothing, and shelter. Every region had its own traditions, beliefs, and way of life. Then, around the year 1000 AD, something unexpected happened. A group of fearless Viking explorers crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Led by Leif Erikson, they reached the shores of North America nearly 500 years before Christopher Columbus. But their settlement was short-lived, and Europe eventually forgot the journey had ever happened. For centuries, the continent remained unknown to most of Europe. But that was about to change forever, because one voyage across the Atlantic would reshape the course of human history. By the late 1400s, Europe was changing rapidly. Kings and queens wanted wealth, spices, silk, and gold from Asia. But the journey by land was long, expensive, and dangerous. So explorers began searching for a faster sea route. One sailor believed he could reach Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. His name was Christopher Columbus. On August 3rd, 1492, Columbus left Spain with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. For weeks, his crew saw nothing but endless ocean. Many sailors became frightened. Some believed they would sail off the edge of the earth. Others demanded that Columbus turn back before it was too late. Then, on October 12, 1492, a sailor spotted land on the horizon. Columbus believed he had reached Asia. In reality, he had arrived in the Bahamas. He had unknowingly opened the door to a completely new world for Europe. Although millions of indigenous people already lived across the Americas, this voyage changed history forever. News of Columbus's journey spread quickly across Europe. Soon, Spain, England, France, and other powerful nations rushed to explore and claim land in the Americas. Ships crossed the Atlantic one after another, bringing settlers, soldiers, missionaries, and traders. The continent would never be the same again. Over the next century, England established colonies along North America's eastern coast. Small settlements slowly grew into busy towns. These colonies would one day become the foundation of a new nation, the United States of America. But before that could happen, the colonists would face years of hardship, conflict, and a revolution that would change the world forever. By the early 1600s, England had established permanent settlements along the eastern coast of North America. The first successful colony, Jamestown, was founded in 1607. Life was incredibly difficult. Disease, hunger, and harsh winters claimed hundreds of lives. Many settlers never survived their first year. Despite these hardships, more people continued arriving from England. Over the next century, 13 colonies were established along the Atlantic coast. Farmers grew tobacco and cotton. Merchants built thriving ports. Families dreamed of a better future. Slowly, these colonies became richer and more independent than anyone had expected. But success brought new problems. Britain had spent huge amounts of money fighting wars in Europe. To recover those costs, King George III decided that the American colonies should pay more taxes. New laws were introduced, including taxes on paper, tea, and many everyday goods. The colonists were furious. They argued that they had no representatives in the British Parliament. Their message became famous around the world. No taxation without representation. In 1773, frustration exploded. A group of colonists secretly boarded British ships in Boston Harbor. Disguised as Native Americans, they threw 342 chests of tea into the water. The protest shocked Britain and became known as the Boston Tea Party. There was now no turning back. Britain responded with harsh punishments. Tension turned into anger, and anger turned into war. Within just 2 years, gunfire would echo across the American colonies. Ordinary farmers would become soldiers, and a revolution would begin that changed history forever. By 1775, the relationship between Britain and its American colonies had completely collapsed. British soldiers marched toward the towns of Lexington and Concord, hoping to seize colonial weapons. But local militias were waiting. On April 19, 1775, the first shots were fired. No one knows who pulled the trigger, but those shots marked the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. As the war spread across the colonies, the Continental Congress needed a strong leader. They chose a respected military officer from Virginia, George Washington. He wasn't leading the world's strongest army. His soldiers lacked training, supplies, and even food. Yet Washington believed one thing above all else. Freedom was worth fighting for. While battles continued, another historic moment was unfolding. On July 4, 1776, representatives from the 13 colonies approved a document that would change history forever. The Declaration of Independence. Written primarily by Thomas Jefferson, it declared that the colonies were no longer under British rule. A new nation had been born, the United States of America. The war continued for several more years. The Continental Army faced defeat many times, but they refused to surrender. With crucial support from France, the Americans slowly gained the upper hand. In 1781, British General Lord Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown. After years of sacrifice, America had won its independence. Winning the war was only the beginning. Now the young nation faced an even greater challenge. How do you build a country from nothing? Who would become America's first president? And could this fragile republic survive? The war was finally over. Britain had recognized America's independence. But winning freedom was only the first step. Now, the young nation faced a much bigger challenge. How do you build an entirely new country from nothing? In 1787, America's leaders met in Philadelphia. They spent months debating how the new nation should be governed. Their work resulted in one of history's most important documents, the United States Constitution. It established 3 branches of government and became the foundation of American democracy. In 1789, the nation elected its first president, George Washington. People trusted him because he had led America through the Revolution. Washington knew the world's eyes were watching. Every decision he made would shape the future of the United States. As the years passed, America continued to grow. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson completed the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the country almost overnight. Explorers Lewis and Clark were sent west to map the unknown lands. Their expedition revealed vast forests, mighty rivers, towering mountains, and endless opportunities for expansion. But as America expanded, a dangerous conflict was growing inside the nation. The North and the South were divided over one issue that would soon tear the country apart: slavery. Within a few decades, America would fight the deadliest war in its own history. As America continued to expand, one issue divided the nation more than any other: slavery. The northern states wanted to limit its expansion, while many southern states believed their economy depended on it. Political arguments turned into anger, and anger slowly turned into hatred. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president of the United States. Many southern states feared his policies and soon announced they were leaving the Union. They formed a new government called the Confederate States of America. The United States was now on the edge of civil war. In April 1861, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The American Civil War had begun. For the next 4 years, brother fought against brother. Families were torn apart. Cities were destroyed. It became the deadliest war in American history. During the war, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that enslaved people in Confederate states were to be freed. Finally, in 1865, the Union defeated the Confederacy. Slavery was abolished across the United States. But the victory came at an enormous cost. More than 600,000 lives had been lost. America had survived its greatest internal conflict, but a new era was about to begin. Railroads, factories, and innovation would transform the nation into an industrial giant. Within just a few decades, the United States will become one of the world's most powerful countries. After the Civil War, America entered an age of extraordinary growth. New railroads connected the East and West, making travel and trade faster than ever before. Steel factories, oil companies, and giant industries transformed small towns into booming cities. Millions of immigrants arrived from Europe, chasing the dream of freedom and opportunity. In just a few decades, America became one of the world's strongest economies. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, helping the Allied powers secure victory. But only 2 decades later, an even deadlier conflict shook the world. After Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, America officially entered World War II. The country's factories worked day and night, producing